Noah, don't forget your lunch. Elizabeth Morrison hurried toward the front door. She grabbed the lunch box left on the kitchen counter and called out to her son, who was still washing his face. Sorry, Mom. Coming right now. Noah's reply came from the bathroom. At 12 years old, her son had gradually grown taller, and his voice was beginning to deepen. Even so, mornings were always hectic. Ellie glanced at the clock and let out a small sigh. If they didn't leave within 15 minutes, she would be late for her hospital shift. Hurry up. You'll miss the bus. When Noah rushed out with his hair still wet, Ellie couldn't help but smile. It had been 5 years since her divorce, and every day had been like this since she started living alone with her son. Still, with Noah's cheerful personality, Ellie had somehow managed to get through her days as a single mother. Mom, can I go to Jason's house after school today? Noah asked while stuffing his lunchbox into his backpack. What about homework? I'll finish it all before I go. I promise. Ellie thought for a moment, then nodded. All right. But be home by dinner time. Thanks, Mom. The sound of Noah running toward the front door echoed through the house. Ellie quickly grabbed her own bag and followed after her son. She worked as a nurse at the local general hospital. Though her job was busy, she was grateful that her regular shifts allowed her to attend most of Noah's school events. Her nurse's salary wasn't particularly high, but it was enough to support the two of them. However, she could barely save anything and constantly worried about the future. After the divorce, child support from her ex-husband Greg had become irregular, forcing Ellie to become financially and emotionally independent. After seeing Noah off at the bus stop, Ellie got into her car. During the 15-minute drive to the hospital, she usually organized the day's plans in her head. Today she had a shift until evening, after which she needed to prepare Noah's dinner and do the laundry. Her mother Deborah's birthday party was coming up this weekend, but that was yet another worry. Deborah Morrison, still energetic at 60, ran a successful real estate business and was known as one of the wealthiest people in town. She always demanded perfection and had high expectations for her daughters. She had repeatedly told Ellie to get it together, while treating her younger sister Rachel with favoritism. That difference remained unchanged. Rachel lived with her husband Michael and their 16-year-old daughter Emma in a nice house in the suburbs. Michael worked for a prominent local company, and Rachel's family enjoyed a comfortable financial life. Despite this, Deborah frequently provided Rachel's family with financial assistance. Why always Rachel? Ellie murmured to herself, then quickly dismissed the thought. There was no point in making comparisons now. What mattered was her life with Noah. What Ellie could never understand was why her mother would lavish expensive gifts on Rachel's daughter Emma while only giving practical items to Noah, even though both were her grandchildren. Parking her car in the hospital lot, Ellie took a deep breath. Many patients needed her today. She had to set aside her personal worries and focus on her duties as a nurse. Good morning, Ellie. Her colleague Sarah waved to her in the hospital lobby. Morning, Sarah. How's it going today? It's busy. The emergency room is full, and new patients keep coming in. Ellie nodded and headed to the staff room. After changing into her uniform and neatly putting up her hair, she pinned her Elizabeth Morrison name tag to her chest. Here, she was neither a mother nor a daughter, but a professional healthcare worker. There was a certain comfort in that. That afternoon, while Ellie was checking a patient's chart, her smartphone rang. It was Rachel calling. What is it? This is unusual. Ellie, about Mom's birthday party. Can you help on Saturday? It was typical of Rachel to ask for help that way. Ellie hesitated slightly but eventually agreed. All right. What time should I come? Around 10 in the morning would be great. Oh, and Rachel paused before continuing. Mom mentioned she wants to discuss Emma's study abroad in England. Ellie frowned. Emma studying abroad in England? This was the first she'd heard of it. Study abroad? I haven't heard about this. It's still in the planning stages. But Mom says she'll support it. Understanding the implication, Ellie felt a bitter taste in her mouth. Once again, her mother was planning to provide financial assistance to Rachel's family. When Noah had asked about college, Deborah had simply told him to look for scholarships. I see. Let's meet on Saturday. After hanging up, Ellie took another deep breath. She should be used to this by now, but there was always a small pain lingering in her heart. Still, she had no choice but to keep moving forward. For Noah's sake, and for her own. The patient in room 3 is calling for you, a colleague informed her. Brought back to reality, Ellie smiled and replied, I'll be right there. She straightened her back and walked with composed steps toward the patient's room. It was just after 3 p.m. when Ellie's smartphone rang again. She was in the ward measuring a patient's blood pressure, but she answered despite not recognizing the number. Hello, is this Elizabeth Morrison? The voice on the other end was tense. Yes, that's me. This is Nurse Smith from Central Middle School. I'm calling about Noah. Ellie felt her heart stop for a moment. Noah? Did something happen? He was in an accident after school. Noah has been taken to St. Mary's General Hospital emergency room. Could you come right away? The blood drained from Ellie's face. Accident. What kind? He was hit by a car while crossing at a crosswalk. The hospital will give you more details. Ellie felt as if the ground beneath her was shaking. Quickly gathering herself, she replied. I understand. I'll go right away. After hanging up, she hurriedly explained the situation to her supervisor and received permission to leave early. With her colleagues' concerned looks following her, she ran to the parking lot. As she drove to St. Mary's General Hospital on the other side of town, not the hospital where she worked, her mind went blank. Please be okay. She whispered, praying at every red light. Noah was her everything. Her son who had remained strong for her sake. The fear that his life might be in danger made Ellie's entire body tremble. Stopping her car at the emergency entrance of St. Mary's Hospital, Ellie rushed to the reception desk. I need to know about Noah. He's my son, brought in from a traffic accident. The receptionist guided her to the emergency treatment area. On the way, a young doctor in a white coat approached her. You must be Noah's mother. I'm Dr. Carter. My son. How is he? Dr. Carter began explaining calmly but urgently. Noah was hit by a car from the right side, resulting in a complex fracture of his right arm and internal bleeding. The CT scan also shows liver damage. We're currently stopping the bleeding, but emergency surgery is needed. As a nurse, Ellie understood all too well what those words meant. Internal bleeding and liver damage were life-threatening. It was a race against time. Surgery, right now? Yes. Could you sign the consent forms? Ellie mechanically signed the documents presented to her. While her mind understood that, this is reality, her heart seemed to refuse to accept it. Let me see my son. After a moment's hesitation, Dr. Carter led her to the treatment room. Noah on the bed looked nothing like his usual energetic self. His face was pale, swollen on the right side, with multiple 4-line monitor wires connected to his small body. When Ellie took her son's hand, Noah slightly opened his eyes. Mom, it hurts. At his weak voice, Ellie struggled to hold back tears. It's okay, Noah. Mom's here now. Everything will be fine. Noah nodded faintly and closed his eyes again. A nurse standing nearby explained, he's drowsy because of the anesthesia we've given him. Ms. Morrison, I need to speak with you, another woman approached her. She appeared to be a hospital administrative staff member. We need to go over insurance information and complete some procedures before surgery. Ellie reluctantly left Noah's side and followed the woman to the administrative office. While providing insurance information and filling out necessary forms, the administrative staff member hesitantly said, Ms. Morrison, your insurance will require a partial out-of-pocket payment for the surgery. The emergency surgery and hospitalization costs combined will result in approximately $15,000 in out-of-pocket expenses. Ellie caught her breath. She didn't have that kind of money anywhere. Can I make payments in installments? Of course, we have payment plans, but we need an initial payment of at least $3,000 before the surgery. Ellie held her head in her hands. She had only about $1,000 in her bank account after setting aside rent and living expenses. Her credit card was already near its limit. We can't schedule the surgery until payment is confirmed, the staff member added apologetically. But my son needs surgery right now. Ellie exclaimed. I understand your situation. However, hospital policy. Ellie left the administrative office feeling desperate. She sat down on a chair in the hallway, trying to figure out what to do. Even if she asked friends, no one could lend her that much money. Her ex-husband Greg had been unreachable for months. At that moment, one option came to mind. Her mother Deborah could certainly arrange the money immediately. However, Ellie had never borrowed money from her mother before. She had her pride, and, more than anything, she feared being refused. But now was different. Noah's life was at stake. With trembling hands, Ellie took out her smartphone and called her mother. Hello? Ellie? This is a surprise, getting a call from you. Her mother's voice was as composed as ever, with a hint of sarcasm. Ellie stumbled over her words. Please. Noah's been in an accident. I don't have enough for the surgery costs. Could you lend me some money? On the other end of the line, Deborah's breathing seemed to pause for a moment. Accident? What happened? Is he all right? He was hit by a car. There's internal bleeding, and he needs emergency surgery. But the insurance deductible, they won't start the surgery unless I can pay $3,000 up front. Ellie desperately forced the words out. Please, Mom. I'll pay you back for sure. On the other end of the phone, Deborah let out a deep sigh. I'm sorry, but I can't provide the money right now. Ellie couldn't believe her ears. What do you mean? Noah's life is at stake. I just promised to fund Emma's study abroad in England. You understand, don't you? We can't miss this opportunity. Ellie felt as if the world around her had darkened with shock. To weigh Emma's study abroad against Noah's life. Noah's life is at stake. Can't Emma's study abroad wait a little longer? Her voice trembled. It wasn't anger, but pure fear and desperation. Ellie, you've always managed on your own. You'll figure it out this time too. Deborah's voice was cold, decisive. Why? Ellie could no longer hold back, and tears streamed down her cheeks. Mom, please. Noah is your grandson. Of course I know that. But a promise is a promise. I promised Rachel and Emma. So it's okay if Noah dies. Don't be so dramatic, you'll manage somehow. Fine. Ellie hung up, feeling drained of all strength. She collapsed into a chair in the hallway as tears flowed freely. Ms. Morrison. Dr. Carter approached her. We're ready for surgery. About the payment. Please give me a little more time. I'll figure something out. She staggered back to Noah's room and quietly took his hand as he received his $4. It's going to be all right. Mom will figure something out. She said, fighting back tears. Noah weakly opened his eyes and smiled faintly. I'm okay. It doesn't hurt much. Seeing her son trying to be brave broke Ellie's heart. How could she come up with the money? Various options raced through her mind. Ask colleagues for help. Rush to a bank for an emergency loan. Holding Noah's hand tightly, Ellie made up her mind. She would find a solution no matter what. That was her role as a mother. It was her duty to protect her son's life. We're ready to proceed, the nurses entered the room. Ellie momentarily panicked. The money issue wasn't resolved yet. But the payment. One of the nurses smiled at her. Everything's fine. The surgical team is standing by. Let's move Noah to the operating room. Though confused, Ellie watched as Noah was taken to the operating room. What happened with the payment issue? While she was still bewildered, a hospital administrator appeared before her. Ms. Morrison, regarding the payment. Before hearing those words, Ellie spotted a familiar figure at the far end of the hallway. It was her mother Deborah, running with a distressed expression. Deborah stopped in front of Ellie, out of breath. Her eyes were red, her makeup ruined. Even her usually perfectly styled hair was disheveled, she had clearly rushed over in a hurry. Mom. Ellie's voice caught with surprise and confusion. She couldn't understand why her mother was here after coldly rejecting her just moments ago. Noah. The surgery? Deborah asked anxiously. He just went into the operating room, Ellie replied coldly. But the payment issue isn't. The hospital administrator interrupted her. Ms. Morrison, the initial payment for the surgery has already been completed. Please don't worry. Ellie tilted her head in confusion. What? Who? I paid it, came a voice from behind her. Turning around, Ellie saw Rachel standing there. She too appeared to have rushed over, her cheeks flushed. Rachel? Why? I'll explain, Rachel took Ellie's hand. But first, let's find somewhere we can sit down. The three women moved to the hospital cafeteria. For a while, there was silence as they sat with their coffees. What's going on? Ellie finally spoke. Mom, when I called you earlier, you clearly refused me. Deborah couldn't look up. Rachel began explaining instead. I called Mom. Ellie, I was worried when I heard you were at the hospital. How did you know? A colleague from the hospital contacted me. It's a small town, rumors spread quickly, Rachel smiled bitterly. So I asked Mom, did Ellie call you? And she said, I refused her. Rachel gave Deborah an accusing look. When she told me what happened, I immediately went to the bank. Then I called Mom and told her to come with me. Ellie was confused. She couldn't understand why Rachel would go to such lengths. The two had never been close as children. If anything, their mother's favoritism had created distance between them. But why? You provided the money. Rachel took a deep breath. Ellie, I heard about Noah. It must be terrible, Rachel said gently. I heard Mom turned you down because of Emma's study abroad costs, but that's a lie. Ellie frowned. What do you mean? About Emma's study abroad? We haven't borrowed any money from Mom for that. Michael's company is covering all the costs. We informed Mom last week. Ellie was shocked. She turned to look at Deborah, who shamefully turned away. What does this mean? Ellie's voice trembled. Why did you lie? Deborah let out a long sigh. Just as she was about to answer, the cafeteria door opened, and Dr. Carter entered. Ms. Morrison, may I have a word? All three women stood up at once. How's Noah? Ellie clutched her chest. The surgery has just begun. It will take about 2 more hours, but there are some things I'd like to explain to you in advance. Dr. Carter explained the details of the surgery and the expected recovery process. The liver damage was serious but not fatal. The bone fracture was complex and might require multiple surgeries. Recovery would take time, but Noah's youth was on his side. After the doctor left, a heavy silence again enveloped the three women. "Mom," Ellie said quietly but firmly. "Explain. Why did you use Emma's study abroad as an excuse?" Deborah sank deep into her chair, covering her face with both hands. "I was too ashamed to tell the truth." Her voice was small and trembling. Ellie and Rachel exchanged surprised glances. It was unheard of for Deborah to show any weakness. "What were you ashamed of?" Rachel asked gently. After a long silence, Deborah finally raised her face. There were tears in her eyes. "I don't have any money." "What?" Ellie and Rachel exclaimed simultaneously. "I failed in a real estate investment. I'm deeply in debt," Deborah's voice caught. "I couldn't tell anyone. Especially not you two." Ellie couldn't believe it. Her mother Deborah had always seemed financially stable, a successful businesswoman. She was thought to be one of the wealthiest people in town. "How much?" $3.5 million, Deborah answered in an almost inaudible voice. Rachel nearly fell off her chair from shock. "How? Since when?" "Since last year. I invested everything in the Southside large-scale development project. But the construction company went bankrupt." Deborah explained the details. She had wagered all her assets, including her long-term savings and bank loans. The project's failure had pushed her to the brink of financial ruin. "But you always made us think." Rachel's words trailed off. "I was keeping up appearances," Deborah answered sadly. "I wanted to remain the successful person everyone in town knew, and a respectable mother in front of my daughters." Ellie was flooded with complex emotions. Anger, sadness, and a strange sense of relief knowing that her mother hadn't been dismissive of them but had hidden the truth out of shame and pride. "So that's why you couldn't lend money to Ellie," Rachel concluded. Deborah nodded. "I wanted to lend it, but I couldn't. So I lied. I thought Emma's study abroad would be an acceptable reason for refusal. When Noah's life was at stake." Ellie's voice shook. "There must have been another way." "I know," Deborah wiped away tears. "What a terrible mother I am, what a terrible grandmother." Seeing Deborah break down in tears shocked Ellie. She had never seen her mother display such raw emotion. At that moment, Rachel's smartphone rang. It was Michael. After a brief conversation, she turned back to them. "Michael is on his way here. I told him everything," Rachel explained. "He says he'll consult with a lawyer about Mom's debt. There might be a solution." Ellie was still recovering from the shock. However, she was beginning to realize that in this crisis, her family was coming together. "But how did you arrange the surgery payment?" Ellie asked Rachel. "Credit card," Rachel shrugged. "I used Michael's business card. It has a high limit, so it was no problem." "Thank you, really," Ellie squeezed her sister's hand. "It's only natural," Rachel looked at Ellie seriously. "Noah is my nephew. He's family." At these words, tears welled up in Ellie's eyes. The distance she had felt between herself and her sister for years seemed to shrink in this moment of crisis. "Ms. Morrison." The three women turned to see a nurse standing there. "The surgery is still in progress, but it's going well. It should take about 2 more hours." Ellie sighed with relief. "Thank you." After the nurse left, Ellie looked at her mother and sister. The three women sat awkwardly under the weight of years of misunderstandings and secrets. But the atmosphere was gradually changing. "What now?" Ellie asked quietly. Deborah looked up, showing determination for the first time. "I'm going to live honestly. No more lies. I'll handle the debt myself." And she hesitated slightly before continuing, I'll be more honest with you both, especially with you, Ellie. Ellie nodded slowly. She couldn't easily forgive her mother, but at least now that the truth was out, she felt they could take a new step forward. Let's wait together until the surgery is finished, Rachel suggested. And so the three women began to talk quietly. About past memories, misunderstandings, and hopes for the future. Their family bonds had been damaged, but at this moment, the threads of repair were beginning to be woven. Several hours later, Dr. Carter appeared with a tired expression. The surgery was successful. At these words, all three shed tears of relief. Noah was still in a critical condition, but the worst was over. Ellie quietly held her son's hand as he was transferred to the recovery room. It would still be some time before he woke from the anesthesia. Deborah and Rachel waited in the hallway. Noah. Ellie whispered to her sleeping son. Everyone is worried about you. Grandma and Aunt Rachel, everyone is waiting for you to wake up soon. Dawn was beginning to break outside the window. With the start of a new day, Ellie sensed that through this crisis, her family was beginning to walk a new path. 2 days after the surgery, doctors announced that his condition had stabilized. Ellie was dozing in the chair by her son's bedside. She had been by his side for 2 days, barely resting. Mom. At the faint voice, Ellie jumped awake. Noah was slowly opening his eyes, looking at her. Noah. Ellie clutched her son's hand. How are you? Does it hurt? Noah smiled weakly. I'm okay. Just thirsty. Ellie quickly prepared water and helped Noah drink through a straw. After drinking, Noah looked around. Where am I? You're in the hospital, Ellie explained gently. Remember? You were in an accident. Noah furrowed his brow, closing his eyes as if trying to recall. I got off the bus, and was crossing at the crosswalk. That's right. You were hit by a car. But don't worry, the surgery was successful. Noah looked down at his body. His right arm was in a fixation device, and large bandages were wrapped around his abdomen. And 4 needle was inserted in his left arm. Was I about to die? The straightforward question clutched at Ellie's heart. It was a bit dangerous. But you're a strong boy. The doctors were amazed. Noah smiled proudly for a moment, but then his expression turned serious. Mom, have you been awake this whole time? Looking at the dark circles under Ellie's eyes, Noah asked with concern. Ellie nodded as she stroked his hair. It's okay. Just having you safe is. The door quietly opened, and Deborah and Rachel appeared. Both looked tired, but their faces brightened when they saw Noah was awake. Deborah rushed over and took her grandson's hand. I'm so glad you're awake. Grandma. Noah looked surprised. It was unusual for his grandmother to visit the hospital. Yes, I've been here the whole time, Deborah replied tearfully. I was so worried about you. Rachel also approached and gently kissed Noah's forehead. I'm glad you're feeling better, Noah. Emma is worried too. She'll come as soon as school is out. Though confused, Noah smiled happily. Grandma and Aunt Rachel caring so much about him. Something special must have happened. Thank you, everyone, Noah said weakly. Dr. Carter came for rounds, and after thoroughly checking Noah's condition, explained to Ellie and the others. He's recovering faster than expected. That's the privilege of youth, the doctor smiled. However, it will take several months for complete recovery. The liver especially needs rest. Work? Ellie asked worriedly. Someone will need to stay with Noah for at least the first month. Ellie's expression clouded. Her financial situation didn't allow her to take a month off work. Don't worry, Deborah said quietly. I'll take care of him. Ellie looked at her mother in surprise. Deborah returned her gaze with a serious expression. Please. Let me do this. Give me the chance to care for my grandson. After the doctor left, the four continued their quiet conversation. Noah tired easily and occasionally dozed off, but seemed comforted by having his family around. In the evening, Ellie sat with her mother in the hospital cafeteria, drinking coffee. Rachel had gone home to prepare to return with Emma. Are you really sure about this? Taking care of Noah? Ellie asked quietly. Deborah took a deep breath. Ellie, I want to learn from my mistakes. From now on, I won't lie, and I'll trust you all. She reached out and took Ellie's hand. I always thought I had to be a perfect mother. But in the end, I made the worst choice. Deborah apologized tearfully. I'm truly sorry. Ellie was filled with complex emotions. There was anger, but also a sense of her heart stirring as she encountered her mother's weakness and sincerity. Mom, why did you have to keep up appearances? We're family. Deborah was silent for a long time. Eventually, she began speaking in a quiet voice. After your father left, I didn't want to be a failure. I couldn't bear everyone in town saying poor thing about me. Ellie recalled the memory from when she was 13. Her father leaving, and her mother crying all night. So I staked everything on becoming successful. Raising 2 daughters properly was my pride, Deborah continued. But somewhere along the way, I went wrong. Especially with you, Ellie. What do you mean? Seeing you work so hard, I should have supported you more. Instead, I pushed you away saying, pull yourself together. I said it was to make you stronger. Deborah turned her face away. But maybe the truth is, I didn't want you to see my weakness. Ellie felt her chest tighten hearing her mother's true feelings. Gradually, she began to understand the reason behind her mother's harshness over the years. And spoiling Rachel was because she seemed weaker than you, Deborah admitted shamefully. You're strong like me, but Rachel is more sensitive, she takes after your father. Ellie was stunned. After Dad? Yes. So I felt I needed to protect her specially, Deborah smiled bitterly. But in doing so, I created a wall between us. The two talked for a long time about their days of child rearing, family memories, and mutual misunderstandings. Sometimes crying, sometimes laughing. Ellie felt as if she was seeing her mother as a person for the first time. Not as someone perfect, but as a woman with her own weaknesses. About Noah, Deborah changed the subject. Don't worry about the financial concerns during his recovery period. I'll take care of it. But Mom, your debt. Yes, I have debt. But I haven't lost everything yet, Deborah said with determination. I've decided to sell my house. I'll move to a smaller place and pay off the debt. Ellie was surprised. You're selling your house. But that house is just a building, Deborah shrugged. It was a tool for keeping up appearances. I don't need it anymore. That night, Rachel and Emma returned to the hospital. Emma sat beside Noah's bed, cheerfully telling him about what was happening at school. Though the cousins hadn't had much opportunity to meet before, a new bond seemed to be forming between them. In the corner of the room, Ellie, Deborah, Rachel, and Rachel's husband Michael gathered to discuss the future. About the debt, Michael quietly began. There are several options. You might want to consider filing for bankruptcy. Bankruptcy. Deborah repeated in a trembling voice. It's not dishonorable, Deborah, Michael said gently. Many business people go through it. What matters is how you recover afterward. Ellie and Rachel decided to cooperate in sorting out Deborah's financial situation. The three discussed and made plans to sell Deborah's house and move her to a smaller residence to repay the debt. You too. Deborah was too emotional to continue. You've grown into such wonderful daughters. And I didn't even teach you properly. I wouldn't say that, Rachel smiled. We learned a lot from you, Mom. That's right, Ellie agreed. Both the good and the not so good were all valuable lessons. Deborah looked at her daughters and felt genuine pride for the first time. Not the facade of pride, but a real emotion. I'm going to live differently from now on, Deborah promised. No more lies. I'll set aside my pride. And she looked at Ellie, I'll cherish you and Noah more. Ellie nodded silently. It would take time to forgive everything, but she was ready to accept the opportunity for a new beginning. By the way, Michael said, about the hospital payment, I've tried negotiating with the insurance company. There's a possibility of reducing the out-of-pocket amount. Really? Ellie asked hopefully. Yes. And we can also set up an installment payment plan, Michael answered confidently. Don't worry, Ellie. We'll get through this together. In the hospital bed, Noah and Emma were quietly laughing together. Seeing this scene, Ellie thought to herself that this crisis might have become an opportunity to restore the family bonds that had almost been lost. As Noah was falling asleep, Ellie kissed his forehead. Mom. Noah sleepily opened his eyes. Grandma and everyone seem different now. Ellie smiled. That's right. They've changed for the better. Noah nodded. It's like everyone's a real family now. At those words, Ellie felt her chest grow warm. That's right, Noah. We're trying to become a real family. Noah closed his eyes contentedly. As Ellie watched her son's sleeping face, she contemplated the days ahead. It wouldn't be easy, but she was no longer alone. She had the support of her family. A new family bond built on truth. Stars shone in the night sky visible from the hospital window, like new lights of hope. 6 months later, in a small apartment lit by the morning sun, Deborah was preparing for work. The space was incomparably smaller than her former mansion, but she felt a strange sense of peace here. Good morning, Deborah. Please check today's schedule, called her colleague Jeanette, standing at the entrance. Having closed her real estate business, Deborah now worked as an activity coordinator at the local Sunrise Senior Center. Thank you, Deborah smiled, glancing at the family photo on the kitchen counter. It was taken at Noah's discharge celebration, showing Ellie, Noah, Rachel, Michael, Emma, and herself. Everyone wore genuine smiles. The debt was being repaid little by little, and with Michael's help, they had established a path forward. Life is ironic, Deborah murmured. Only after losing everything did I finally see what truly matters. Ellie walked down the hospital corridor, reviewing notes for her head nurse exam. Having started attending night school, she felt fulfilled as she pursued career advancement. Ellie. How's Noah doing? Senior nurse Sarah called out. He's fully back in school this week. He's really getting better, Ellie's expression showed obvious relief. I heard your mother is doing great work at the senior center, Sarah mentioned. Ellie smiled. She said it was temporary at first, but now she's completely enthusiastic about it. That accident was terrible, but it changed our family. Returning home, Ellie found Noah and Emma engrossed in a video game in the living room. The cousins had grown close over these past 6 months. Emma, what happened with your England study abroad? Noah asked. I postponed it for a year, Emma answered. Meanwhile, I've started volunteering at a nursing home. I got interested after seeing Grandma's work. Emma volunteering? I can't imagine it, Noah showed a surprised expression. How rude. People can change, you know, Emma laughed, throwing a pillow at him. I know. Our family is the best proof of that, right? That night, the entire family gathered for dinner. Let's make a toast, Michael raised his glass. To the health and happiness of our family. Noah, how's school? Deborah asked. She now actively participated in her grandson's school events. My teacher wants to write an article about my accident. The theme is the value of life and family bonds. Emma, how are your college applications? Ellie asked. I want to study psychology. After seeing the people working at Grandma's facility, I became interested in elderly care. Deborah looked moved. Emma, that's because of your influence, Grandma, Emma smiled. After dinner, Deborah called Ellie into the kitchen. My life's greatest failure has become my greatest blessing, Deborah said with emotion. Because it taught me the true meaning of family. Ellie studied her mother. The perfectionist of old was gone, replaced by a more human expression. Mom, it's wonderful to see how you've changed. You've changed too, Deborah pointed out. You've become more confident. Since Noah's accident, I've discovered my own strength. At the same time, I've learned the importance of asking for help. We took the long way around, didn't we? Deborah smiled wryly. But we're here now, Ellie took her mother's hand. That's what matters. As the evening grew late, Deborah and Ellie stood on the porch. Mom, be honest. Do you regret it? Giving up that big house, your successful business, everything. Deborah considered before answering. Sometimes, I miss the old life. But in my current life, I feel much more genuine happiness. A life built on honesty and humility is far more valuable than one constructed of lies and pretense. If you can think that way, you really have changed, Mom. I'm still halfway there. But I'm moving in the right direction. From inside the house, Noah's voice called out, Mom, Grandma. Emma wants to take a photo. Everyone gathered in front of the camera, smiling for the picture. Those who had once been separated by lies and misunderstandings were now bound by truth and love. Deborah quietly reflected. Sometimes the darkest hours of life bring forth the brightest light. Through the tragedy of Noah's accident, she had learned the most valuable lessons: to be honest, to acknowledge weakness, and above all, to truly understand what it means to love family.